Okay, in the novel, Frederick Douglass starts off by basically saying that he had no memory of the time period that it was, or the actual age that he was, because at that time it was no documentation, and basically slave owners didn't want you to know how old that you was, despite the fact that, and he also compares it to little white boys knowing their age rather than black slaves. Frederick said that he was born near Tuckahoe, near Hillsborough, and about 12 miles eastern of Talbot County, Maryland. So he was born in Maryland. He talks about how children were pulled from their mothers before they were 12 months, and he talks about living on a plantation until he was 5 and being moved to, like, with the older woman until he was moved to till he was sold to a different master. Second question. Frederick Douglass talks about his mom for a split moment in the article. He says that her name was Harriet Bailey. She was the daughter of Isaac and Betsy Bailey. That he is believed to be the son of a white man because he didn't know of his father. He talks about her, like, a few encounters in his childhood where maybe she came 4 or 5 times to see him at night, but he had been taken away from her before he was 12 months, because that's just how slavery worked during that time. They didn't want the children to get, I guess, attached to the parents, or they were taken to be future slaves and taken to live on a plantation with, like, an older woman who wasn't able to work anymore. Question 3, he never attended college, but he was able to get an education, or started pursuing the education of learning how to read when he moved to Baltimore with the Hughes. She began to teach him how to read. She began to teach him his A, B's, and C's in small words, and then once she had to stop teaching him how to read, he had, like, this drive about learning how to read and write. So he, like, copied the words from the dictionary. He read writing from out of his master's book. He learned from the little white boys in the neighborhood. So he just, like, basically learned from the people around him and taught himself skills to be able to read and write. It never talks about him having a career journey, but it did say that he actually had his first job of employment, or whatever we would describe it as, or whatever we would describe it as. He said that in 1833, so around about that time he was about 16 years old. It says that he had his first handheld field job, so he was actually working in the field. He also talks about how a little bit after that, how he was teaching slaves how to read and write, which is not technically a job, but he was teaching them. Question number 5, give me a new fact of the author's personal life. From what I know, Frederick Douglass is not married so far, or do not have kids so far. But throughout the novel, he's just telling, like, of his upbringing of slavery. He brings up his aunt being beaten. He brings up, again, his mom. He brings up small memories that he has of his mom. He also mentions that he had 2 sisters and a brother that he didn't really know, but they lived on the Lloyd plantation with him during the time that he was there. Question number 6. What did the author do outside of writing? Well, he was a slave, so he didn't have the option to do much. And at this point in the book, he hasn't got to the point where is he going to be a free slave. So he basically just worked in the field. He's only 16 years old at this point in the book. Well, about 16 years old at this point in the book. So he's never really had a job outside of what I just said about the handheld job. Question number 7. Do you think the author has necessary... I think that the author basically just wrote the book on the best of his knowledge. No, I don't think that he had, like, any enterprise to write a book. Have the necessary enterprise. So I don't think that he had any extra tools or whatever it was to write a book. I think that his ultimate goal was just to, I guess, make others aware or tell his story of what was going on during that time and during slavery. Question number 8. What other writing success has the author succeeded? I don't know if he has any other writing success, but I do know that once he learned how to read, he did start teaching the other slaves, and it talks about how he had up to or more than 40 scholars. He excelled at reading and writing. After the wife started to teach him like small words, like teach him his ABCs and small words, he took that and ran with it and learned as much as he could about it, and even like took the precaution like scratching whatever it said that he was like carving out the wood. He like had this motive to teach himself how to pronounce and read and write words. Number 9, how do you describe the author's overview writing skills? I feel like he was very descriptive throughout the story. He gave a lot of facts. He gave a lot of details to the point where when you're reading a book, I could feel like I'm sort of, I guess, watching a movie, or like I'm seeing it more close in person than reading a book, because sometimes we all know like narratives or documentaries can be like a little boring. Yeah, but okay, question number 10, how did the author promote his book? So it never talks about any point in the book about him promoting the book. I think that he had no, he had no motive by writing a book. I think that he's just telling his life story. He's telling what he experienced. He's talking about he's trying to give an insight on slavery, on things that were going on, or how he looked at it, or how he viewed it, or what he went through during his time as a slave. Or he's telling his journey from a child, from his perspective up until now that he's at the age of about 16. He's giving us an example of what he went through and how masters were different, and how basically white people or whatever used basically slaves being dumb and stuff as a way to keep them slaves. He touches on a lot of that in the book.